It started on a rainy Tuesday, the kind of day when the clouds hover so low it feels like the sky might crash into the city. Grant Lorne, billionaire tech entrepreneur and CEO of Lorne Tech Industries, stood in front of his office window overlooking Manhattan, sipping black coffee from a titanium mug. Behind him, the office was cold, sleek, and quiet, until a soft knock interrupted the silence. It was Malia Grant, the new administrative assistant in legal. Young, sharp-eyed, and barely a month into her position. She didn't usually come to this floor unannounced, especially not into the CEO's office. "Mr. Lorne, do you have a minute?" she asked, her voice low but firm. Grant turned, raising a brow. "Of course. Everything all right?" She hesitated. Then she stepped inside and closed the door. "There's a camera hidden in your office," she said quietly. "I think someone's spying on you." Grant blinked. He almost laughed, until he saw the look on her face. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't nervous. She was certain. "I found something while doing system maintenance last night," she explained. "I wasn't supposed to, but the signal was piggybacking on an internal admin port. It's transmitting somewhere outside the building. Live." A heavy silence settled between them. He placed the coffee down, jaw tightening. "Where's the feed going?" Malia pulled out a small tablet and showed him. "Encrypted server in Zurich. But it's not military grade. I could crack it in a few hours if you want me to." Grant stared at the screen. His mind was already calculating possibilities. Industrial espionage? A hostile takeover attempt? A competitor? But something else gnawed at him, a memory of someone who always insisted on redecorating his office, someone who spent more time in here than any executive had reason to. He narrowed his eyes. "Don't tell anyone about this," he said, his voice suddenly steel. "Not yet. Let me handle it first." Malia gave a small nod. "I figured you'd say that." As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. "One more thing, Mr. Lorne, the last 2 files accessed by whoever planted the feed? They were yours. And hers." Grant didn't ask who she meant. He already knew. Grant Lorne sat at his desk long after Malia had left, staring at the untouched coffee cooling beside him. The thought that someone was watching, listening, inside his own sanctuary was unsettling. No, more than that. It was personal. Violating. Calculated. He tapped a hidden button beneath the desk. A sleek console drawer slid open, revealing a secured tablet with offline protocols. He powered it up and pulled up the building's original renovation schematics. Then he overlaid them with a 3D rendering of the current layout, generated from the internal smart sensors. There it was. A signal cluster hidden in the north-facing vent. Small. Deliberately placed. Just above where he often held confidential calls and after-hours meetings, including the ones with her. Amelia Drake. His fiancée. Former crisis PR specialist. Charming, elegant, disarming. They had met 3 years ago during a heated shareholder scandal. She had saved his image, spun the headlines, won over the board, and eventually, won him. Since then, she had embedded herself in every corner of his world, from his company to his calendar. Grant replayed every moment. Her casual interest in his office decor. Her odd question about where he kept confidential files. The way she once joked about needing to keep him honest. It wasn't funny anymore. He clicked a button and brought up access logs. Her ID badge had entered this office, alone, twice over the last week while he'd been off-site in Dubai. And once at 2:13 a.m., after the cleaning crew had signed out. He didn't want to believe it. But the numbers didn't lie. He tapped into the back end of the smart camera hub. The video footage was gone. Someone had wiped it clean, expertly, but not perfectly. He recovered 2 seconds of glitchy audio. It was grainy, staticky. But he heard her voice clearly. Don't worry, he never checks this. Grant leaned back in his chair, face expressionless. Until a smirk crept to his lips, the cold kind. The calculating kind. He stood up, adjusted his cufflinks, and picked up his phone. Security. Lock down office 29A. And patch me into Malia on a secure line. A pause. And cancel my lunch with Amelia. Permanently. Malia sat in the dim back office of Lornteca's cybersecurity wing, a room very few even knew existed. Designed as a failsafe during high-risk mergers, it had no windows, no internet access, and only one door that locked from the inside. On the desk in front of her was the encrypted feed from the hidden camera, now routed through a custom decoder she had built herself. The signal blinked once, then again. It was still live, still transmitting. But not for long. Her secure phone buzzed. Talk, she answered. Grant's voice came through, calm but colder than she'd ever heard it. I want to intercept the next stream live. Mirror the data without alerting the source. Can we do that? Already working on it, she replied. But you should know, the person receiving this isn't just watching. They're also listening. Audio's clearer than the video. Grant exhaled through his nose, not in fear, in rage held tightly under control. What's the playback window? Next upload hits in 11 minutes. Probably scheduled recordings. Then send me the mirrored stream as soon as you crack it. She hesitated. And after that? Then we put on a show. Back upstairs, Grant re-entered his office, now aware that every inch of it was compromised. He glanced up at the vent but made no visible sign he knew. Instead, he sat down, tapped his earpiece, and waited. 3 minutes before the feed was due, the office door opened. Amelia. She was dressed immaculately, as always, tailored white suit, pearl earrings, and not a strand of her auburn hair out of place. Grant, you cancelled lunch, she asked sweetly, walking toward him with a rehearsed pout. That's not like you. He looked up and smiled. Thought I'd make it up to you here. Private lunch. Just us. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly. Are you okay? Never better, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. She sat slowly, smoothing her skirt. He leaned back, eyes never leaving hers. I've been thinking a lot about trust lately, he said calmly. Oh, she replied, crossing her legs. That's a big topic. Bigger than most people realize. He smiled. Like, who do you let into your space? Who do you let hear your secrets? Amelia's lips parted just slightly. There was a flicker in her eyes, so small most wouldn't catch it. Grant continued. You ever hear the phrase, nothing stays hidden forever? She gave a slow, forced chuckle. Sounds like something you'd say during a shareholder speech. He leaned forward now. Lowered his voice. I said it just now because I know you're listening, Amelia. You're not the only one with cameras. And just like that, the blood drained from her face. Amelia blinked, her polished exterior beginning to splinter under the weight of those last words. Excuse me, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. But Grant noticed the subtle shift, her fingers clenching, jaw tightening beneath that practiced smile. He leaned in closer. I know about the camera, he said softly. The one in the vent. The one you had installed. The one that's been sending my private meetings to an offshore server. She tried to laugh, a breathy, nervous sound. That's insane. Why would I do something like that? I was hoping you'd tell me, Grant replied, standing up now, towering above her. But just in case you lie, which you will, I thought I'd give you a chance to hear what you sound like when you think no one's listening. He tapped a button under the desk. Hidden speakers clicked on. Then a voice crackled through the room, don't worry, he never checks this. Amelia's own voice. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, it looked like she stopped breathing. The audio continued, clearer now, pulled from multiple fragments Malia had stitched together. Grant let it play. As soon as we get the board vote, we freeze the accounts. I'll be long gone by then anyway. He's too busy running a company to realize who's running him. Silence. Amelia stood slowly, as if by instinct, her words caught in her throat. Grant, she started. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, he said coldly. You were going to sell me out. Leak classified board decisions. Take a cut from the competitors I outbid last quarter. She was shaking now, but it wasn't fear, it was panic. This isn't what it looks like. No? He asked, walking to the door and opening it. 2 security officers stood waiting. Silent. Ready. Grant turned back to her. You know, Amelia, you should have asked where I really keep my secrets. The ones not in this office. Amelia's face twisted. Her words failed her. He nodded at security. Escort Ms. Drake out. Her badge access has already been revoked. They stepped forward, but Amelia didn't move. Her last attempt came as a desperate whisper, "You'll regret this." Grant didn't blink. No. I regret ever trusting you. As the doors shut behind her, Grant exhaled. The room was still again. Then his earpiece crackled to life. Malia's voice, surveillance channels dead. Signals off. She's out of the building. Grant allowed himself the briefest smile. Thanks, Malia. I owe you. She paused. Well. I might have one more thing to show you. By the time Grant reached the secure cybersecurity suite again, Malia was already waiting for him, standing beside a secondary monitor wall filled with encrypted logs, signal traces, and a heat map of data traffic from the last 48 hours. She didn't look nervous. She looked like someone who had anticipated this moment from the beginning. I traced the rest of the feed, she said, without even turning to greet him. Turns out Amelia wasn't working alone. Grant's expression sharpened. Who else? Malia zoomed in on one corner of the heat map. There's another access node. Same signal frequency. Same encryption style. But this one's coming from, inside Lorntech Legal. Someone with level 3 clearance. Grant didn't speak, not immediately. His mind was already sifting through names. Any idea who? He asked. I ran badge swipes. Cross-referenced them with building entry logs and internal data pulls. Only one person overlaps with the times Amelia accessed the camera remotely. She tapped a key, and a name popped up on the screen. Daniel Voss, Senior Counsel. Grant stiffened. Daniel had been with the company for years. Quiet. Loyal. Or so he'd thought. Malia continued, he was the one who approved the redesign of your office security layout 6 months ago. Amelia probably used him to plant the feed. Grant clenched his jaw. You have proof? Not yet. But I do have this, she said, clicking a final tab. A live image popped up on the screen, Daniel Voss in his office, hunched over his tablet, completely unaware that Malia had back-channeled his front-facing camera. He just got a notification that Amelia was escorted out, she said. Now he's trying to scrub his drive. Grant stared at the screen for a moment, then tapped his earpiece again. Get legal. Quietly. Lock Voss down before he deletes anything. Pull every system log from the last quarter. And Malia? She turned toward him finally. He gave her a rare, genuine nod of approval. You're getting a raise. Effective today. She smiled faintly. I'll take stock options instead. Grant actually chuckled. Done. As he turned to leave, Malia stopped him. One last thing, sir. He looked back. "You've still got one more camera in this office," she said. "The original prototype from your smart glass desk, it records by default." Grant raised an eyebrow. "Thought I had that disabled." "You did. But whoever turned it back on, didn't realize it syncs with your home server." She handed him a separate flash drive. "Everything Amelia said. Everything she did. It's all on here. The full truth." Grant took the drive slowly. In a world where everyone watched each other, it was rare to find someone who chose to protect rather than exploit. And in that moment, Grant realized something else. Amelia hadn't just underestimated him. She'd underestimated the one person she never saw coming. The quiet, brilliant, underestimated black girl in legal. 2 weeks later, the atmosphere at Lorntech had shifted. Daniel Voss had been quietly removed from his position. His office was sealed. Investigations were ongoing, and whispers floated through every department, about espionage, betrayal, and the woman who caught it all. But amid the tension, something else was growing: respect. Grant stood in the executive boardroom, facing a smaller-than-usual group. The press hadn't heard the full story, yet, and that was by design. He wanted control of the narrative before anyone else tried to spin it. Behind him, on the large LED screen, were the words, "Internal Security Overhaul, lead by Malia Grant." Yes, she shared his last name, but only by coincidence. Until now, she'd been hidden in the ranks. Now, she stood beside him, calm, composed, and ready. "This company was nearly compromised," Grant said, addressing the senior staff. "Not by an outsider. By people we trusted. That ends now." He turned slightly to Malia. "I've asked MS. Grant to serve as Chief of Internal Security moving forward. Effective immediately." Malia gave a small nod, but it carried power. Some in the room looked surprised. A few skeptical. One or two even seemed annoyed. But none dared object, because deep down, they knew who had saved them all. After the meeting, as the room cleared, Grant stayed behind. Malia did too. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked quietly. She smiled. "You weren't ready either when you built this company. But you learned. I will too." He nodded. "If you ever want to build your own empire, just say the word." Malia tilted her head. "One step at a time, Mr. Lorne." As they exited the boardroom, Grant looked at the employees watching her, with curiosity, with admiration, with something close to awe. And he knew one thing for sure: sometimes, the smartest move a billionaire can make, is listening to the person no one else noticed. The headlines came slowly at first, cautious, speculative. Internal shakeup at Lorntech amid rumored espionage probe. Fiancée of billionaire CEO quietly removed from company circles. Anonymous source suggests betrayal at the highest level, but then Grant made the call. He wasn't one for drama. He didn't like tabloids. But this wasn't about spectacle, it was about control. Truth, weaponized properly, could protect more than reputations. It could burn out rot before it spread again. That afternoon, he scheduled a press conference. It wasn't held in the usual polished boardroom. Instead, it took place in a tech lab: raw steel walls, open cables, screens showing lines of code. And beside him, once again, was Malia. He didn't reveal names. He didn't need to. But he laid out a clean, deliberate statement: "2 members of this company violated our trust. One was close to me personally. The other, a long-standing legal advisor. Their goal was to profit from classified data and influence. We discovered it, neutralized it, and rebuilt our security from within, led by one of the youngest and most brilliant minds at Lorntech. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about resilience. And the people who stand watch when no one's looking." He turned to Malia as the cameras flashed. The reporters immediately shifted focus. They didn't know her name, yet, but they would. Afterward, as they left the stage, Grant handed her a slim folder. She opened it. Inside was a letter. Board nomination proposal, Malia Grant. She looked up, stunned. This is, a seat on the executive board. You earned it, he said. And this time, we're building things right. From the inside out. Malia swallowed hard. This is big. Grant smiled. So are you. That night, back at her small apartment, still untouched by her promotion, Malia sat at her modest kitchen table, watching the news cycle spin. Her name was trending. And not because of scandal. Because she'd stopped one. She plugged the flash drive into her personal terminal, the one where she first traced the camera signal. A single file remained at the top of the list, final_truth.wave. She didn't open it. Not yet. Because now, the game was no longer about what people had hidden. It was about what she could build with what she knew. A week after joining the Lorne Tech board, Malia found herself standing in her new corner office, one she never imagined she'd earn, let alone so quickly. Glass walls. A silent view of the skyline. 2 security badges. Her own name etched on the glass. But what caught her attention was a sealed envelope on her new desk. No markings. No handwriting. Just her name. She opened it carefully. Inside was a simple note: you were never supposed to find that camera. But you did. Which means you're ready. JT. Her pulse quickened. That signature. JT. She'd seen those initials before, deep in the metadata of the camera's firmware. A buried marker in the original code that had flagged her curiosity from the start. She assumed it was a lazy developer or maybe Amelia's technician. But now she wasn't so sure. She rushed to her old laptop, the one not connected to the Lorne Tech network, and opened the metadata logs again. This time, she ran the marker through 3 obfuscated cross-index tools. What popped up chilled her. JT, classified vendor ID. Last seen on a military surveillance contract. 4 years ago. Linked not to a person, but a project. Project, Janus Trigger, the kind of name that didn't belong in boardrooms, but in black sites and intelligence dossiers. Suddenly, the story changed. The camera wasn't just planted by Amelia. It had been built by someone else, someone who understood deep signal scrambling and operational concealment. Someone who wanted Malia to find it. Grant was already waiting for her when she barged into his office. You knew about JT, she said, breathless. He didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, not at first. But when I saw how quickly you dismantled that camera's entire chain. I knew you'd trip over him eventually. Who is he? Grant folded his hands. A ghost. Ex-defense intelligence. Hired years ago for a government-backed surveillance contract we abandoned, or thought we did. Malia's mind raced. So why point me to him? Grant looked her in the eyes. Because this wasn't just about a corporate betrayal, Malia. That camera didn't just stream to Zurich. It duplicated. Duplicated to where? Grant turned his screen and pulled up a map. A single blinking dot. Langley, Virginia. Malia stared at the blinking dot on Grant's screen. Langley, Virginia, home of the CIA. This wasn't just corporate espionage anymore. This was something else. Something bigger. You're telling me the CIA was watching? She asked, her voice flat. Grant shook his head. I'm telling you someone used Langley's infrastructure. Could be a rogue element. Could be something older than either of us. All I know is, when Amelia activated that camera, it didn't just stream to Zurich. It split. Half of it was meant to reach someone buried deep in the intelligence community. Malia folded her arms, uneasy. So what do they want with Lorne Tech? He paused. Not Lorne Tech. Me. He walked to a cabinet, unlocked it, and pulled out a leather-bound folder marked Echelon 9. This company's first investors weren't all venture capitalists, he said. Some were alphabet agencies. Cold War money, quietly backing emerging tech. Malia's eyes narrowed. And you never mentioned that before? Because I thought it was buried. Until that camera showed up. He slid the folder to her. Inside were black and white photographs, memorandums, and an old Lorntech prototype blueprint, a cognitive surveillance system labeled Juno V.0.9. Her breath caught. I've seen this design before, she whispered. Grant raised a brow. Where? In my graduate thesis. I analyzed it as a theoretical model, open-source data from an anonymous contributor codenamed JT. Now the puzzle pieces clicked. JT had never left the world of surveillance. He simply moved into the shadows, feeding select designs into civilian spaces, waiting for someone smart enough to reverse engineer them. And that someone had been Malia. You weren't just supposed to find the camera, Grant said. You were being recruited. Tested. She looked up slowly. And for the first time in weeks, she felt a chill that had nothing to do with betrayal or wires or signals. I think JT's still watching, she whispered. Grant nodded grimly. He always is. That night, in her apartment, Malia powered up her offline laptop again. No Wi-Fi. No ports. Just raw code and silence. She clicked into a buried folder marked thesis_backup. Inside was a corrupted video file she'd never noticed before. When she decrypted it, it flickered to life. A dim room. A shadowed figure. A voice distorted by analog static. You passed phase 1. The world you think you're in, isn't the world that watches you. You saw the camera. Now, look deeper. The screen cut to black. Then coordinates appeared. 37.4275 degrees north, 122.1697 degrees west, Stanford University. Where she had studied. Where it all began. Her past wasn't just a foundation, it was a trailhead. And she had just been invited to follow it. The coordinates led her back to Stanford. Not to the busy lecture halls or modern glass labs, but an old, half-forgotten building near the edge of campus, Frost Research Annex, shuttered after a funding scandal nearly a decade ago. Malia stood at the rusted gate, alone. The wind whispered through the dry hedges. She scanned the exterior until her eyes landed on something familiar, a faded Lorntech logo etched into a side panel near the basement entrance. This was no coincidence. This was planted. Years ago. She pressed her ID badge, the new one from Grant, against the panel. Click. The lock disengaged. Inside, the air was stale, but the security systems hummed softly, still alive. Old servers blinked faintly in the darkness. On one terminal, a single file glowed, Juno_V1.0. Initiate. She tapped it. The screen lit up. A low hum filled the room. Then, a face appeared. Not a real one. A digital rendering, neutral, unreadable, but familiar. The original Juno AI, from the surveillance prototype. But this time, it spoke. Welcome, Malia Grant. Your clearance has been elevated. You are now lead observer, Tier 1. She frowned. Observer of what? The AI's eyes flickered, as if considering how much it should reveal. Of those who watch. Of those who manipulate. And of those who think they are unseen. Malia's mind raced. Who gave me this access? JT. Another screen came to life, showing images she never expected, public figures, executives, heads of tech companies. All unaware they were being tracked, monitored through tech they had invented. Juno continued, the surveillance economy was never about safety. It was always about control. But now, control is shifting. You were chosen not because you followed the rules, but because you broke them in the right places. Then, the screen showed one last image. Her own face. Live. Right now. Being watched. She looked straight into the lens. And this time, she didn't flinch. 1 week later Malia returned to Lorntech with new clearance codes, a new server key, and a quiet understanding with Grant. They wouldn't speak of what happened at Stanford. Not to the board. Not to the press. Not to anyone. Because what she now carried wasn't just knowledge. It was leverage. The game had changed. The watchers were now watched. The surveillance empire was being rewritten, from the inside. And at the center of it all was the woman nobody saw coming.